What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, me and Tucker are going to show you a method for saving tomato seeds that's an absolute game changer. Let's go! Over the last few years, vegetable seeds have gotten more and more expensive, especially tomato seeds. So if we can save some of our own tomato seeds, not only will we be able to have our hands in the whole cycle of growing tomatoes, but we will also be saving some money. Let's jump right into the process. So the first thing we need to do is actually harvest a tomato to be able to save seeds from it. When choosing a tomato, what we want to do is choose a plant that is healthy, because some of the traits that this plant has is going to be passed down into the offspring. So we want to pick a plant that is doing well for our particular location. This right here is a Soldaki variety of tomato, and this is one of my favorites. This is an heirloom. You can see the tomato right down here. So what we want to make sure is that this tomato is actually ripe. We don't want it to be overripe and rotting. We want it to be ripe. We're not too worried about whether or not this tomato plant is cross-pollinating with other tomatoes locally around it, because tomatoes are self-fertile, so they actually produce the pollen for themselves in the flower. So we're not worried about like cross-pollination like we would for something like a squash plant. Another thing is we want to make sure we're saving seeds from a tomato that is either an open pollinated variety or an heirloom variety, because these will produce true to seed. We don't want to save seed from a variety that is a hybrid, or the seed won't be like the same as the offspring won't be the same as the parent. So we want to make sure we're doing those things. What we want to do is copy nature and how it actually, drops the tomato to the ground. The tomato sits there, it starts to ferment, and then next year the seeds are ready and viable to be planted. So we're going to kind of copy that process. Let me bring you over and show you how. Let's cut our tomato open and start saving the seeds. So I'm just going to cut the tomato just like this. Open her up, cut into about quarters. And then I want to show you, when it comes to tomato seeds, there's something on here. Let me show you. So surrounding the tomato seeds, you'll notice there's like this gelatinous kind of fluid around it. This is what like prevents the tomato seeds from sprouting. This is a sprout inhibitor. So it makes it so that the tomato seeds don't sprout while they're still in the actual tomato. What we want to do is remove this through fermenting. Some people like to just take this and smear it against a paper towel to remove it. In my opinion, I think that ends up being more work than the fermenting process. Plus, the fermenting is how nature does it, and not only will it remove the outer casing, but I've also read that it helps with some issues like seed-borne diseases. Another thing is it makes for a better tomato seed at the end. I'll show you. The seeds look a lot healthier, and when we remove all this gelatinous on the outside, it also makes it so that there's less chance of the tomato seeds actually molding. When you do it this way, your tomato seed should last for over like 6 years. So let's actually do the process. What I'm going to do is just take a cup like this, and I'll put the tomato seeds that I've already removed. We're just going to take a mason jar, and then we're going to take a spoon, and we're going to scoop out all the juices and some of the flesh in there, just like this. We're going to do the same thing for the rest of the tomato. Get in there. All the seeds should be in the same location. We're just going to scoop out the flesh like this. Just like that. Get a lot of the nice juices. And a cool thing about saving seeds like this is we're going to also be able to eat this tomato so it doesn't go to waste, the rest of it. So what we did right there, we'll do the same thing for the rest of the tomato plant, or the tomato, just like that. Then, when you have it like this, what I like to do is just add a little bit of water. So we're just going to add a little water, not too much. That was actually a little bit too much. So I'm going to have to take a little more of this. So we just want to add a little bit of water. You don't want to add any more than twice the amount of water, because when we put the water in, it's going to basically slow down the fermentation process. Let me show you one that I've had fermenting for 3 days. So after we have this tomato saved the seeds just like we did here, we want to take a little lid and we'll just cover it, basically filling the whole entire cover. We want it to be able to breathe a little bit. If you want, you could even put a plastic wrap over this and poke holes in it, but we want it to breathe a little bit. And then we're gonna sit it in a location. Ideally, the temperature is between about 70 and 75 degrees. We don't want it any warmer than 75 degrees. And what's gonna happen is after about 2 to 4 days, depending on the temperature, so this one went for 3 days, what's gonna happen is it's going to ferment. The good viable seeds are going to sink to the bottom, and then the pulp kind of is gonna like move to the top. So as I raise this up, you'll notice all the good seeds are kind of sitting at the bottom there, as you can see. So that's all of our good viable seeds. Not every single variety are the viable seeds going to sink to the bottom, but most of them are. You'll know because if they're not all sinking. So now these are all ready after it's fermented for a few days. These are ready to be dried. And you'll notice there's a few little black things in there, just a couple of fruit flies got in there. But you can see how there was a little bit of mold forming at the top. It's a good idea to come by after you with this, as it starts fermenting, and just kind of shake it up a couple times a day just to kind of move it around. But you'll notice the considerable difference between the one that is fermented and the one that isn't. You can see the one that isn't fermented, some of the seeds are still floating. So we're essentially just copying what nature does when the tomato drops to the ground. Next, what we're going to do now that these are finished is we're going to pour off the top, and so what's left in here, so that we're just left with the good viable seeds. So what I'm going to do is just pour it out. Let me pour it just right over here. We want to make sure to be careful not to pour the actual seeds out. And then we can just add some more water just to kind of wash it. And the good seeds are just going to sink to the bottom again. So you'll notice how they're just sinking to the bottom just like that. That's a good sign. Another thing we can do that's pretty simple is we're just going to take once I get most of the pulp out, we're just going to take a strainer and then just pour the seeds into here. Should be most of them. Remove this pulp, and I'm just going to spray it. Spray the seeds. Just removing all that pulp, so we're only left with seed. There we go, all of our seeds are rinsed nicely. Now, what we're going to do is knock it onto a paper plate. This is how I like to do it. Something like a paper plate will work like this, a coffee filter, or even like a paper towel. So we're gonna knock the seeds down onto the paper plate. It'll help soak up some of that excess moisture. Then we're gonna spread the seeds out. We don't want them like clumping together on top of each other. As it starts to dry, we could easily separate the seeds too. So that looks pretty good. Then as they dry more, I'll be able to separate them, but we don't want them stacked on top of each other. What we want to do with this is we want to put this in a well-ventilated area and let them dry for about 1 to 2 weeks, so we know that they're fully dry before we actually start putting it into storage. To store them, we want to put them in like an envelope or even like a sealed container. We want to put it in like a cool, dry place. But by doing it like this, you're going to make it so you have good, viable tomato seeds for like 6 years. You can, if you want to, like I mentioned, do the other process of, I'll show you how you can kind of do it, of taking let me just lay this right here for a sec so it doesn't blow away on me. It's a bit windy, so we're playing against the wind. You could take like a paper towel like this. Some people like to do it. Take your tomato, take the seeds out, and kind of just like smear it against a paper towel, the seeds. Some people like doing this, and you can try to see, you can get the seed casing off like that. But in my opinion, this ends up being more work and a little bit tedious. Through the fermentation process, not only is it like completely the way nature does it, but it's also like you can do a way bigger quantity of tomatoes. So if you wanted to save like seeds from 5 tomato plants and have a lot of seeds for years, this process makes it really quick, really easy to do. And I think there's a lot of added benefits to doing it the way nature does it, instead of trying to kind of like, you know, just rub all the casings off. I think it just ends up being tedious, and it opens up more opportunity for mold and things like that. So that's one way you can do it. I really prefer and I suggest doing it this way. This is how I've done it for years, and I think it's the best, most efficient way to do it. I'll also show you, after these seeds dry more, how the seeds look different when you ferment them. They seem to almost like have these like little white hairs on them. doing it like this also makes it so you don't know which seeds like sink to the bottom and are particularly viable. So this is one way to do it, the quick way. I call it kind of the lazy way, and sometimes doing things the easy way isn't always the greatest. I heard like a saying that I like, and it says, the path of least resistance makes all rivers and most men crooked. So sometimes if it's something like when it comes to saving tomato seeds, I just suggest doing it the way that like the pros do it, the way that is you know, the best way, and not just always the easiest way to do it. Even though in my opinion, this way of doing it, rubbing on the paper towels, isn't even easier. It's messy, and I think you're left with a lot better seeds when you do it like this. We're gonna let these seeds dry a little bit, and then I'm gonna show you what they look like compared to the ones that we rubbed off the seed casing just by hand. The tomato seeds have had some time to dry. If you go close, you can notice there's like almost tiny little white hairs on the tomato seeds that we fermented all around the outside of them. But then if you go over to the tomato seeds that we just smeared, you'll notice they're way more dull looking. They don't have that like that same texture and the white hairs on it. I'm not exactly sure what the white hairs are, but it seems like it's something that is kind of protecting the seed. So I really think this is the way to save tomato seeds. And I think even if you, in your opinion, it might be a little more work or take a little bit more time, I definitely think it's worth it. If you've never saved tomato seeds before, I suggest you try it. It's a lot of fun. It's great when you get to have like your hand in every single process that it goes into, like, you know, saving the seed, planting the seed, growing the plants. It's just like, you just get to be connected with the whole entire cycle of growing tomatoes, and it just makes it a lot of fun. Again, make sure that you're only saving seed from like open pollinated or heirloom tomatoes. You don't want to save the seed from hybrid tomatoes. There's nothing wrong with hybrids. Hybrids are great. I grow a bunch of hybrid tomatoes. You just want to make sure you're like getting new seed or buying new seed for hybrids, because if you save the same seed, it's just not going to be, it's likely to not have the same exact characteristics as the parent plant, the offspring. That's just kind of how it goes, because the hybrids are two different parents, and then that's what creates the seed. Again, these are self-pollinating tomatoes, so you don't have to worry about them crossing too much either. And yeah, I suggest you really try to save some of your own seed. This is the way to do it, in my opinion, and you really can't go wrong. That's today's video though. Thanks for watching. Me and Tuck hope that you guys had a blast with this video. We had a lot of fun, and we love, like at this time of the year, to go out, find our tomato plants that look the healthiest, and then grab some tomatoes from those to save seed from. And then if you kind of do this process year after year, I feel like you kind of like can localize your tomato and create like your own kind of almost like heirloomish tomato that grows best for your particular location. This way, 5, 6, 7 years from now of saving that seed, you're kind of normalizing it to where you live, and it should grow even better in the future. Me and Tuck wanted to mention to check out the merch down at jamesprigioni.com. Grab a grow shirt, grab a gardening is life shirt, and be part of the team. We also wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Mike Tribold, or Tribold, I think it might be. Thanks for being a part of the team. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. And me and Tuck can't thank you enough. Let's go check out what the little boss is doing right down here. He's kind of just been chilling out. We've tried to keep this video super focused on the idea of saving the seed, but you're crazy if you think that this guy hasn't just been watching our back, watching out for the garden, making sure nothing's coming in, and stealing all of our harvests, because you got to have a good watchdog like this. He's the real heart and soul of the whole garden and the channel. Right next to us here we have some tomatoes. We can save seed from these too. This is I believe this is an heirloom, the berry, or not an heirloom, an open pollinated Barry's Crazy Cherry. So when it comes to saving seeds, look at these, some of these are falling to the ground. For these small tomatoes, it's going to be the same thing. You're just going to want to open them up, drop the seed into the cups, and then just add a little bit of water if you need to. We had a blast out here. We hope you guys did too. We have so many tomatoes to harvest, so we'll probably come out with a harvest video for you guys relatively soon, and you guys can just follow along, and just make sure you keep on growing. Tuck and James will be back to you again real soon. We out.